Here we go. Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the January 2021 virtual meeting of the Public Safety Committee of the City of Norwich. Many of you have joined this meeting via the meeting link that was sent to you by email. Please help to keep background noise to a minimum by muting your mic until you are ready to speak to the meeting. As a participant, if you would like to speak during any part of the meeting, click on raise hand next to your name. When it is your turn to speak, you will be recognized by the chairman. You can unmute your mic. Please state your name prior to speaking. Please indicate when you are done speaking and the chairman will move on to the next person. During the department reports, the chairman will call on each department one at a time. As a member of the general public, you have joined this meeting by calling in. Your microphone is muted upon joining the meeting. You are welcome to listen in on all or part of the meeting tonight. If you wish to address the committee during public comment, please press *9 to raise your hand. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be recognized by the chairman and you may unmute your mic by using the keystroke *6. Please state your name and address prior to speaking. Please indicate when you are done speaking and the chairman will move on to the next person. Please be advised that the audio, video, and chat history of this meeting is being recorded and that the media may be present for all or part of the meeting. At this time, please mute all background devices and we will begin. Thank you. I just got a few more people I'm going to let in here. Okay. All right. Okay, so welcome to everybody that just joined our meeting. Item number 1, call to order. I call the Public Safety Committee of the City of Norwich to order. It is 7:02 p.m. We do have a quorum present with Alderman Nash, Alderman Bettencourt, and Alderman DeLucia all present. Item number 2, adoption of the previous meeting minutes. The committee was sent the draft of the minutes from our December 9th, 2020 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Okay, a motion to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderman Nash. Any discussion, corrections, deletions on the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor, and we have to go by roll call. Sorry about that. We got to go by roll call. So, so no discussion on the motion. So Alderman Bettencourt.
Aye.
Alderman Nash.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So the minutes are accepted unanimously. There we go. Just, I seem like I'm splitting my attention. I'm just letting people in from the waiting room. Okay, moving on to citizen comment. Item number 3 on our agenda tonight. Are there any citizens that would like to speak to the committee under citizen comment tonight? I see a hand raised. It is a phone number with last 4 digits 3459. Please unmute, identify yourself, and make your comments to the committee.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Philbrick. My address is 10 Elm Avenue, Norwich,
Hello,
Connecticut. Good evening.
No, good.
My call tonight is going to, can you hear me?
Yes, I was just going to say Happy New Year.
All right, thank you. My call tonight is not going to be a pleasant one. The last time that I called into the Public Safety Committee meeting was on March 11th of last year. A year has passed. When I spoke to you the last time, I raised my concerns about COVID-19, never in my wildest dreams imagining that we would be where we are today. I am this evening going to talk about 2 things. The first is my utter sadness, anger, and quite frankly, disgust with the city of Norwich. There is nothing, I repeat, nothing on the city's website regarding COVID-19. Up until maybe a month ago, there was a banner with a notice dated March 15th. 2020. The city should be ashamed that they have no information, no links, nothing on their website. Nothing. Calls, attempts to reach the city manager go unanswered. He refuses to speak to me. He refuses. I'm going public with this. I don't care anymore. The city has an obligation. I'm sure that every public safety entity within the city has meetings and discussions and talks about what has happened, what's happening, what, God forbid, what is going to happen in the coming weeks with the riots and the insurrection. If we are as woefully underserviced by those situations as we have by the COVID, I don't know what will happen to us. I would ask the Public Safety Committee, because you are the conduit between the public safety and the city manager, to please impress upon him how important it is for people to be able to get information. So that's my first thing. The second thing I'm going to say is very difficult and very personal for me. We all know that Jason Vincent took his own life. I would venture to guess that not one person in your room, this room, any room, had any idea. But I'm going to follow that up with something else. And this is where it gets difficult for me. About a year ago, I found myself in a similar situation. Those of you who know me, know me. You know I have my struggles. You know I have my opinions. I went to the Norwich Fire Department because I was at the end of my rope, literally and figuratively. Never thinking for a moment, not remembering that a fireman is not only a first responder and a fireman, but they're also mandated reporters, which means that once you open that door, they have to walk you through it. There was no way that Mike Davids was going to let me leave that building that day. He literally saved my life. The point I'm trying to make to you and everybody else that is a first responder, a mandated reporter, a person that cares about anybody, there are people struggling. There are people struggling emotionally. And when people can't or won't acknowledge it, it just pushes them farther and farther and farther to the edge. Am I annoying? Absolutely. But you know what? I still am a person. I'm still a human being. And when I ask a question or I raise an issue, to be dismissed and ridiculed and ignored only pushes me farther toward a place where I don't want to go. And this is, as I say, this is very personal for me, but I know I am not the only one in the community. So those of you who are first responders, mandated reporters, what I said to somebody on Facebook the other day. I personally have lost 3 people in the last 3 weeks, 2 from suicide and 1 from yet we don't know what the reason is. So when somebody says, "How are you?" and the person responds, "Okay," maybe go the extra mile and say, "Just okay today? You just okay, Joanne? Is there something going on? Is there a bad day?" Because if someone like Jason, who was the cheerleader and the epitome of positivity, finds it so overwhelming that he has to jump off an 875-foot bridge, we all need to listen a little more. And to John Salamone, I would say to you, Mr. Salamone, you have a job to do. You have a job to do, and your job to do is to manage the city of the Norwich. And part of that job is to be available to your taxpayers and constituents. I don't care if you don't like me. I don't care. But I deserve to be acknowledged. So I thank you, Joe, and because you always answer my questions. We don't always agree, but you always answer my questions. Mark, same thing. Bill, all I can say to you is at some point in time, you have to explain to me why you refuse to wear a mask. I just don't get it. I've asked the question a million times, and I never get an answer. So I thank you all. To those of you that are out there on the front lines, be safe, and it's out of control. And the very last thing I will say, and it's to the city again, stop, instead of promoting businesses in the downtown area, how about putting some information out on the city website? Because if you don't, it's beyond my comprehension. Thank you, Joe, and I'm done now. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Joanne. I'll just say on that middle part of what you said, personally, I'm deeply saddened by the loss of Jason Vincent. We may never know what the whole story was, but it saddens us nonetheless. And my working relationship with him, although it was brief, was very productive, and I'm already missing him very much. And you're right about the mental health issues that are tied to everything else that's going on, including COVID. On COVID, I know that John Salamone is present in the meeting. I know that he heard everything you said. You know, I agree that I would like to see the city's website a little bit more, I don't know, friendly in terms of just the accessibility of the stuff. But I do not have the expertise to tell anyone how to make that happen. But I'm sure that he heard your comments, and
I'm sure he did too.
Right.
Well, maybe that will get a response then from him to me,
right.
And that would be a good thing. So again, I thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Yeah.
All right,
I
take
know,
care.
Mark. Before we move on, it looks like you want to say something quick. Go right ahead.
Yeah, just obviously, I mean, I've been on the board of NCDC the last year and change, and I had a relationship with Jason that because our business is in the Stonington side of Mystic, and and I had dealt with Jason on that, and it's just yeah, I mean, let's face it, it's just a shock to everybody, so that I know. So
But if I may follow up on that, because this is the exact point that I am trying to make you all aware of. If someone like Jason, who for all intents and purposes looked to have his life together and everything was good, we know now that it was not good. There had somebody, so if he was able to fool us all for so long, and I don't want to cry, but if he was able to fool us and had to go to that length because he was hurting so bad, he is not the only one. He is not the only one. Do not belittle people when they don't call me a pain in the... I had an NPU employee call me a pain in the ass. They think you're nothing but a pain in the ass, Joanne. Do you know how that makes me? I know I'm annoying, but you know what? People like me are respected by certain members of the community because I am not afraid to ask the questions. But I don't have it in me anymore. I don't have it in me anymore. I don't, and I am saddened by the death. Jason and I had our differences, but he was a cheerleader for the city of Norwich, and he was suffering, and none of us saw it. None of us saw it. And now it's too late. So again, I don't want to be melodramatic, but I thank you, and I just all stay safe, wear your mask, and Bill, maybe you could tell me why you don't wear your masks. So I don't have to worry about that anymore because I love you too. I don't want anything to happen to you or your family. So be safe out there. Thank you all for what you do. And someday we'll all get together again. Thank you.
Take care, Joanne.
Thank you, Joanne. Okay, is there anyone else that would like to make a public comment to the committee tonight? Scrolling through the list. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment to the committee tonight? One last time, is there anyone else that would like to make a public comment to the committee tonight? Okay, seeing and hearing no one, I'll declare citizen comment period closed, and thank you all very much. Moving on to item number 4, old business. Item A, the COVID-19 resurgence impacts. I know that there's a lot going on with COVID-19. And I know that Mr. Solomon has a lot of information to share. So John, you have the floor.
Get on mute.
Yeah,
Sorry
you go.
about that.
there you
There you
go.
go. Did
There
you
we
start talking, John?
I finished. I must have talked myself out. No.
We missed the first 3 minutes of his report.
Yeah. I'll start over.
Okay.
We have some statistics that don't bode well for the city at this point in the pandemic. First, last week we were the number 7 municipality in the state as far as infections. That's the whole state. That includes Fairfield County, New Haven County, et cetera. We've unfortunately have gone up in the rankings. We're now over 100 per 100,000 cases. To give you just an example, when we were the community in the fall that was number 1, if you recall, when we had we were kind of leading the way, unfortunately, with the new resurgence. We were in the 30s, so we're 3 times what we were when we were initially in it. So it's very serious. There was a conference call yesterday, and it's very hard to explain, but the eastern counties, New London County, Wyndham, are experiencing the highest levels of coronavirus infections. Now, in our case, it may be that we're closest to Rhode Island, which is in the top 5 in the country for infections per 100,000 of population. And Massachusetts is not far behind. So we're kind of in a quadrant there where we're affected. And of course, there is a lot of commutation between Rhode Island and Connecticut. People live in either, work in both. So we're sharing some of the problems, and as Rhode Island's problem expands, it's going into east. And it's exactly what happened in the spring when Fairfield County became the lead area for infections, and that was the overflow from New York City and New York at that time. So that kind of explains it. It's difficult. We have to keep on doing what we're doing. We have the City Hall in the same pattern of appointments and and whatnot. We're not open to the public except for the appointments. We have a flow control on that. Unfortunately, we do have some employees now that have coronavirus. We were able to kind of keep it out of some of the areas, but now within City Hall and its environs, we have some cases. There have been cases in the fire department and police department, but this is the last 3 months, it's migrated more to the general employee population. We had a conference call with the governor tonight, and there is good news and bad news. Obviously, the good news is that there is a vaccine that is very effective against the virus. The bad news is that the supply coming to Connecticut is very limited. We right now the state has an allocation of about 44,000 doses per week. 1B, which is the new category that is going to migrate from the 1A, which includes people over 75, people between 65 and 75, and people under 65 with conditions that would warrant a situation where they need to take more care. In addition, there is going to be essential workers and transit workers, et cetera. There's going to be a list that comes out tomorrow where they'll flush it out a little more. The point is there's about 1 million residents that fall under 1B. If the supply keeps at 44,000 per week, very easy to do the math, it's 20 weeks just to get through 1B. And then there's a 1C, and then there's a number 2, which is the general population. So unless the amount of vaccine coming to the state increases substantially in the coming weeks and months, it's going to be a long time before we have enough of dosage in the general population to stop the spread and the increase. So we have to think, unfortunately, at long term, that we're going to be in a situation like this for at least 3 or 4 more months. Having said that, we're having the effect of the holiday period now, which is no surprise to anybody. And so we're peaking. It is possible that after the holiday period, we will stabilize and maybe have a reduction. But right now, the trends are not in a reduction; they're in a direction the other way. So we have vaccinated our medical first responders, including most of the volunteer fire departments. We have vaccinated the fire department and police responders, and of course the nursing homes in the city have all received their first dose. So those are good news, and that's where in the nursing homes, especially where about 45% of the fatalities have occurred over the last 10 months of the virus. So it's a moving target. Things change even today. Originally, they did not have individuals from 65 to 75 on the list. The federal government did announce yesterday that they wanted from the CDC to include those. So the state has made that change. Tomorrow it'll be official. So I'll take any questions you might have. We're staying the course basically with departmental meetings and official committee and council meetings in the hybrid remote status. I'll take any questions, Mr. Chairman.
We had a lengthy conversation yesterday, so I don't have any questions for you. You pretty much hit all of the high notes that we discussed yesterday. But Bill or Mark, do you have any questions for the city manager?
Not really. I think a lot of this is, been covered ground, recently anyway.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Bill? No. Okay, well, thank you, John. That's very informative, as troubling as it is.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. So, all right, then moving on to new business. Number 5 on our agenda, item A is something I placed on the agenda. It's an issue that came up regarding tractor trailer traffic on Hunters Road. And instead of talking this one to death, I have a brief presentation that I'd like to share with the committee. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna go here. Okay, so,
Joe,
yeah,
just one quick question. You didn't submit this with the agenda, right?
no, what I'll do is I will save it as a PDF and put it out. I just created this today, so I thought that it'd be easier than me just talking my way through all of this, right? It would make it a lot shorter if I just went through, it's just 3 slides, I believe. So, but I will turn it into a PDF and submit it to our recording secretary, so it'll be part of our minutes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So, excuse me, just one sec. There we go. Okay. So the issue is that this was brought to my attention on the 23rd of December. 55-foot long tractor trailer left the yard at Bob's Stores warehouse in Taffel. The truck turned right onto Hunters Road from Norwich Avenue. We all know where that is, right in front of Poppy and Rye, made that right-hand turn. There was a line of traffic waiting at the light at the bottom of Hunters Road at that intersection. And the truck was unable to negotiate the turn without leaving the roadway. Jumped up on the curb and the adjacent wall. I have photos in the next slide, so you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. And created what I believe to be a necessary tipping hazard and a dangerous situation for multiple vehicles queued at the light. So I went down there. As I said, I took some pictures that I'll show in a moment, but I also saw the video from the automotive service business that's there on the corner. I forget the name of it. They showed me the video from that day. And it was harrowing. I mean, there were not only cars there, was a small school bus there in that queued up traffic. And this truck, it really looked like it wanted to tip over. It wasn't until the driver kind of let the cars clear out and then kind of backed out of it and then widened his radius and was able to get off of the thing. And apparently, according to the business owners in that area, this is a regular occurrence. This was not an isolated incident. I'll show you. So here's the photos that I took, and fortunately we had the snow to mark this. But this wall is over 2 feet high above the curb, and you can see right where the truck went, and actually I could tell that other vehicles had also traveled up here, up on the curb, either prior or subsequent to this. But you can see, how much of an issue.
I think the guy that just did the work on the wall.
Yes.
And
yeah,
and because I've seen him. I saw it up in building that fence there and stuff.
Yeah, this gentleman that bought this house, he intends to, I don't know if he intends to rent it or flip it, but he turned it, he updated it. You're right, they redid the wall, they did the fence and, you know, and they really did a great job on this house, but they pulled the wall back a little bit, which makes it like it's a little bit more generous than it really is. And there are actually marks further up the road where trucks have scraped that little bridge that's up there by the trailer park and so on and so forth. So, you know, this has been this has been an issue here. It's becoming more of an issue because there's been a greater number of tractor trailers coming up and down this road. So next slide, you can see, so these are, you know, these 4 bullet points are the results of the conversations that I had with the people in the area. And also, again, you know, the channel Jason Vincent and I had a conversation about this very topic, you know, literally weeks ago, where we were talking, well, about a month ago, because we were talking about traffic concerns with tractor trailers in other areas. And we were talking about how so many tractor trailers are now using either, you know, using 395 and either getting off at 97 in Ockham, or they're going all the way up to Route 12 in Lisbon and then coming back into Norwich on Route 12, which is great. All right. I mean, it was my understanding from Jason that Bob's Stores has told their truck drivers that that's how they want them to come and go, you know, go through Lisbon and get on 395 that way, even when they're headed south. And so, you know, so it's obvious that the truck traffic is here to stay, and that's fine because they're supporting these important businesses that we want to keep, but they're better accessed using the state roads and using, you know, Route 395. So I think it's fair to say that, you know, we all know Hunters Road well enough that we know that I don't think it was ever envisioned to support tractor trailer traffic. So the question, and you know, I'm not drawing a conclusion, I'm putting the question forward to this committee, and I would certainly like to hear from the chief of police. I would also like to hear from the fire chiefs in general, anybody who has to run fire apparatus through here. You know, should we consider prohibiting tractor trailers from using Hunters Road, from Harlan Road all the way down to Norwich Avenue? And I'll
I
open
think
the
you should
floor-
act, I
open the
think,
floor to discussion. Yeah.
I think Chief Daly probably, he's the traffic authority for the city, should probably answer that first.
Certainly.
Yeah, I think, Mark, we've been dealing with the tractor trailers going back, oh boy. Mark used to work the gate back in the day.
Years, yeah. It was my first security job.
It was your first job. I remember it well because I think we tackled the third or fourth inclination of this very problem together. And Bob's has been great. I don't want to make this anti-business.
Right.
Where we
Right.
kind of fall down, Bob's does a great job getting their tractors and trailers to come in a certain way. But a lot of times it's replacement drivers, retired drivers turn over. Well, we did reach out to the state back in the day, and I think Mark will remember it, to the State Traffic Commission, because they have to weigh in on a no truck prohibition on Hunters Road, and they're very hesitant to give those out because you know, the problem what we identified back then was probably 95% Bob's tractor trailer trucks, and the state is real hesitant about no through trucks that travel through those roads. I can try that again. I mean, obviously the state, the STC reps in this area have probably turned over twice since we last tried this. But a lot of the issues are, and I don't know how quickly they can get it through the GPS things if we make this no truck traffic. The GPS and Waze programs that these truckers use will give the shortest route. So by word of mouth that we're able to get them to go to 395 to 97 and then make that turn into Bob's. And then Bob's went above and beyond, and I think Mark was involved in this, in trying to direct everyone to Route 12 so they don't have to even do that sharp turn when you turn right into the Bob's property.
Yeah.
So
There,
Good.
and there was the other problem with them coming out the side, that little side street with the apartments and stuff and scraping that phone pole and things like that. So there were several issues that they addressed. I don't know if Tim might know something about this too.
Yeah, I don't think we had any major accidents, but it used to be speeds and all hours of the night. The trucks would come in at all hours. The Jake brakes when you come down the hill coming into the engine brakes when they come down the hill near Hunter's Road, Hunter's Ave. The Jakes would kick on and it'd wake up the whole neighborhood. And there was more speeding trucks back then. But again, a lot of these are independent contractors. Although the trailers say Bob's, the tractors belong to other people. But we've had success in the past. But as far as a long-term permanent solution, we're open to suggestions. I will revisit, this conversation with the STC rep to see if we can get the road signed for no-through trucks. But I do believe they had reservations on doing that. And they don't like doing it. But I have seen it done in some really residential neighborhoods, and I don't know if that road meets. They're probably going to classify that as a secondary road, not a tertiary road. And then obviously we'll let out service trucks. Fire trucks and school buses are always going to be exempt. But what about an oil truck? Can an oil truck go from Hunter's Road, from Harlan to Norwich Ave, just making a delivery, or is it just tractor trailers, or is it trucks? So there's a lot of moving parts in a ban, and that's just a sign. Unless we can get the GPS providers to take that off as an option on a truck level GPS. But nothing's insurmountable, and we're up for a challenge.
Well, and again, I want to be clear about this. My focus and thought on this is really about the tractor trailers, right? The box trucks, the 32,000-pound trucks, and even the oil trucks and stuff. I don't see the hazard that's happening with trying to make those turns onto the bottom of Hunter's Road is not a big issue for these box trucks, even Bob's delivery trucks. And again, not making this about Bob's, because there are other tractor trailers that are traveling up and down that road. Okay, but it is the tractor trailers that are the issue. Making no turn coming off of Hunter's Road, not so much of a problem because Norwich Avenue is pretty wide right there. But turning on, the business owners in that area have said that some tractor trailer guys, or should say drivers, are going all the way up to the old Starwood, turning around in the parking lot and then coming down the hill, right, and making a left turn on the Hunter's Road because they can make that swing. It's really that right-hand turn. But as you said, it's the GPS is saying, hey, this is the shortest route, this is the way to go, and there's really no indication that getting onto that road is a hassle, or is tough to negotiate.
And again, I don't know, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I've always seen signs for no through trucks. I've never seen no tractor trailers, but I'll look into that, see if that's an option. We might not have the ability. It might go by weights, which would put your straight job, single axle delivery trucks, or your dual axle like oil trucks into that, just because of the weight.
Right.
I'll find out, and I'll get back with some answers. And again, I mean, the real answer is we got to get that street taken off as an option from the navigation providers, and that can be a challenge.
Right. Well, I appreciate if you would do that. That would be great. I mean, let's look at what options we have before we decide, what we want to do.
Just a quick question, Chief. What's involved with trying to go through the navigation providers? How do you go about that?
I believe the state has some contact with them. Obviously they update the map, so there's a database that I think our contact point would be the state traffic control again. But they get information from governments on road name changes and new streets and speed limits, and so there's a way for doing that. We just have to get to that. I think once you see, usually most of the map providers, although there's not a lot of GPSs out there, most people have it on their phones, but they're pretty good with updating. Although it took a while, looking back, it did take a while for the exit numbers on a couple of the providers that I use to update.
Okay,
So I think we'll go through the
Okay.
state they have a contact.
all right, terrific, thank you. Is there anyone else that'd like to weigh in on this topic before we move on?
I will, Joe, if you don't mind.
I don't mind at
having
all,
the
go
lux-
ahead, chief.
Having the luxury of growing up on that corner for the last 50 years, that problem's been there, and it goes back as far as Thermos. It was when Clinipad was there. We worked with Chief Abley. None of the trucks that came in or out, even our daily, our LTL drivers would come in, and they had to stay off of that road, and they only had 28-foot pups. So, but that's been an ongoing problem. At one time, there was a school bus stop on that corner, and that made the mornings pretty interesting. One of the options you have is find out what the little bridge is rated for right there by the trailer park. And then there's another bridge further up. I honestly don't know what they're weighted for at all. The problem that I see with the GPS is most truck drivers buy any GPS that they can find, because the one for bigger trucks is extremely expensive. And that's how we end up with Tractor Trailer Street in Taffel. Last couple of months ago, we had a 53-foot trailer loaded with eggs that was stuck on that corner. They had to bring in 2 rotators to get it off. And that's typically what drivers will do, is they'll buy the cheapest GPS that they can, which does give them the direct route.
Or on
But-
School Street.
Oh, that's what I said. We had a 53-foot trailer loaded with eggs over there.
Yeah.
And they'll tell you they were trying to get to Bob's, or they were trying to get to, over the industrial park. Last summer, after picking my son up at cross country, I went up Mohegan Road, and there was a 53-footer there with a 102-inch sleeper going up Mohegan Road. He tore the hell out of the truck, but that's the way his GPS was taking him to get to Goodyear. So, but the problem on Norwich Ave has been there for years and years. That's why they left the bushes there for so long. That's why the street sign had been replaced so much, to the point that it just fell over. I don't know what the answer is, because there's so many different people that come in and out of Bob's on a daily basis.
All right, thanks, chief. All right, anyone else that'd like to weigh in on this topic? This is a good discussion. I appreciate everybody's input, and we'll see, if we can make some progress on this one way or the other. So if there's nothing else on this, I'd like to move on to item B under new business, which is department updates. We will start with Norwich Public Utilities. Welcome, Eric.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Alderman. Right now, we continue to track COVID-19. Our employees remain primarily working and responding from home. No impact to emergency response capabilities at this time. Our PPE levels are sufficient. We're tracking that pretty carefully. And right now, thankfully, we do not have any employees in quarantine. Both our reservoirs are finally back up to full pond. And we would like to remind all the fire departments to please provide your monthly hydrant usage to Tom Cutler. This is pretty critical information that we need to report to the state in terms of our water usage. So that information is very important to us. So we appreciate your cooperation. Also, for the fire departments, there's been some conversation of late in regard to our odor of gas response. So I just wanted to let everybody know that we will respond to any odor of gas call that we get a phone call on. Even we have had some circumstances where the fire departments get there, notice there's no gas service, and cancel us. In those cases, the state actually still requires that we respond. So even if you tell us that you don't need us, unfortunately, we will continue on. And that is a policy that we've updated to make sure that our operators are aware of that. So I just want to make sure all the fire departments were aware that we will come to those calls. The last thing I wanted to make people aware of is intelligence agencies are reporting increased chatter regarding threats to critical infrastructure. Most of our working groups, electricity subsector, water subsector have been having meetings on this. Right now, there are no specific threats against any specific utilities, but there is the increased chatter. Department of Health, Connecticut Department of Health had a meeting today where they were asking for heightened awareness at the end of the day. Chief Daley, really what they're asking for is increased patrols. And for the general public, if you see something, say something. Connecticut State Police are also involved in this, and they have said that they are increasing their patrols around critical infrastructure. And we monitor our critical infrastructure via camera 24/7. Pending your questions, that's all I have.
So not so mumuch a question, I guess part question, part request. On that last item, I would, and maybe this is already happening, but I would like to see coordination between what you're hearing, okay, from a threat to utility, to with the police chief and with all the fire chiefs, because if we were to start to see some, let's say, radical events, the last thing is for us that I want to see is for us to get caught off guard. Not that we're not already heightened because of last Wednesday, but certainly, right? But I would just like to be able to sleep at night knowing that our first responders are not going to get drawn into, and I hate to say it, but ambush situations where, right, where they're going to be, they're going to be in a tight spot. And only because there wasn't enough coordination between the people who are in this meeting, right? Okay.
So I don't want to speak for Chief Daley, but I know from our perspective, our control room and dispatch talk all the time. I mean, many times a day in terms of different incidents that are going around the city. They will typically give us a heads up if there's something that they feel is going to impact us, and vice versa. So I know that we are having those conversations on a regular basis. And I only bring it to the attention of the committee just so that obviously all the fire chiefs and police chief are aware. I'm sure they've already been getting the same reports I have, but also to make the committee aware. Right. And to let you know that this is something that we are tracking very closely.
Right. And not to put too sharp a point on this, but I'll say, let's make sure that everybody's getting the same information and everybody's sharing all the information, even if it's redundant, because I also don't want utility folks responding to what they think is just an electrical issue. And it's somebody has, set up a Claymore mine, for crying out loud, or an IUD, right?
Absolutely.
I hate the fact that I have to think that way and say those things out loud, but this is where we are, and unfortunate, it's an unfortunate thing, but it's part of our reality. Mark Betancourt, you look like you were about to say something as well.
Yeah, if you're in law enforcement or security field, like I am, or even Bill, I mean, you'll see these bulletins on a fairly regular basis. So certainly we're at a heightened state of awareness at this point. And in my field, there are other issues. My client has obviously other concerns. So we're dealing, so we deal with those. But they're all interrelated. So these are the things that we're very concerned about. Everything from anti-vaccine protesters to the stuff that we're talking about, the violence regarding the election and inauguration of President-elect Biden. So those are all things that need to be taken into account. So usually the network's pretty good about getting that, and people like Chief Daley get that, and other people, and they disseminate. They're usually pretty good about disseminating that information to people that need to know.
All right. Yeah, let's just make sure. Let's just, for lack of a better phrase, I'm going to coin a phrase that I heard on the news. Let's not have a failure of imagination, right?
Absolutely.
That's fine. Absolutely. It's a point well taken, though.
Okay, thank you very much, Eric. Moving on, Rob, American Ambulance Report, please.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Alderman. Just some brief numbers, very quick and unaudited from 2020, which is mercifully over at this point. American Ambulance responded to 8,101 emergency calls in the city of Norwich during 2020, which is down 853 from 2019. With that being said, our staffing levels have remained consistent. We've been dedicated to providing the service that the city is expecting and accustomed to from us. Very briefly, in the month of December of 2020, we responded to 748 emergencies in the city of Norwich, which is up 23 from 2019. Things are trending back upward, which is not necessarily a great sign for the community and as a whole. However, we are continuing to staff to meet the demand. We do have, unfortunately at this point, a pretty significant COVID impact. Any given week, we have about 3 people out in some form of quarantine, isolation, or testing. Thankfully, that seems to have become a rolling thing. So it's 3 people every week, but it's not the same 3 people. Once again, thankfully, the majority of our staff that has become afflicted with this or tested positive has had fairly benign cases, and we haven't had any significant or serious medical issues as a result. Additionally, we haven't been able to directly trace any of those cases specifically to a work-related exposure from American Ambulance. All of our staff continues to wear appropriate PPE for all patient contacts and is practicing universal patient masking. So if anybody calls for an ambulance in the city of Norwich, they will be asked to place a mask on before they are transported, unless it's clinically not possible. The fire departments continue to respond on a more limited basis per the medical control facilities, and that seems to have worked out well. We haven't had any sort of an issue. As far as that's concerned, they've all been wonderful and incredibly helpful to all of our crews that need them when they need them. As far as COVID itself is concerned, I'm happy to report that of the 132 clinical staff that we have, a full 87% had opted to be vaccinated, and that process is currently ongoing. We were able to, along with, I believe, at least Norwich Fire and I believe some of the other volunteer departments and maybe the city, secure the vaccine through Hartford Healthcare. So our staff didn't have to utilize the VAM system, which was a fairly seamless process actually, and we've been very, very grateful for that. That process started actually 28 days from Saturday, because the first round of people that got their first vaccine through Hartford Healthcare with American Ambulance will be receiving their second dose on the 23rd. We have noticed some mild symptoms in a couple of individuals out of 132 that ended up with a significant enough symptom that we had them out of work for a couple of days as a precaution. However, we are continuing to monitor that and adjust our staffing accordingly. Ending your questions, I don't have anything further for you.
No questions from me? Mark, Bill? No questions from the committee. Thank you very much, Rob. Next up, Norwich Police.
Good evening, everybody, again. As far as COVID impacts, our PPE is doing well. Seems like a lot of the issues we've had in the past getting it is the supply chain is able to keep up so far. We'll see how it goes during this surge. We had 1 new COVID case this week so far, brings us to approximately 5 since the start of the pandemic. And no significant long-term impacts. The officers are all able to return after their quarantine periods with no long-term effects. So that's good. Vaccination is underway. We did utilize the VAM program. So we've had approximately 70% of the officers sign up for it. But I'm hoping as they see the COVID numbers in the county increase, that more will join up and sign up. We had 2 new hires in the past week. We will be down. We're losing another officer next week to the Connecticut State Police, and another one probably a week after to a job change. Call volume is, as Rob is, I'll echo what he said. Our call volume is back to a normal year's level, which is bad because the virus is at its worst right now, and we're doing normal amounts of calls. So the officers are interacting with the public at the same pace they were in a normal January. And although it's January, it tends to be a very, very busy month for us, a violent month. And so we're concerned about that. But so far, like I said, only 1 new case so far this month. We're working through some aspects of the police accountability bill that will come into effect either in January or April or July 1st, making sure we're ready, don't get caught short on that. That seems to be going well, so it can be. And as far as the recent violence, I get daily briefings, emails, situational reports from the JTTF, FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force. Norwich is fortunate enough to have an officer at the Joint Terrorism Task Force in Connecticut. So we get real-time information from the FBI, and as a result of that, I am on the New York City Police Department's intelligence list, and I get daily briefings on their state of the intel throughout the entire country. It's hard to believe, but as a bomb goes off in Berlin, I get it notified by NYPD long before I get it from the FBI, so that works out very well. So I got another briefing tomorrow, Zoom call briefing from the FBI, and we're monitoring it closely. And if we get something specific to a certain threat aspect, we will be bringing in the partners as necessary. And that's where we stand.
Perfect. Thank you, Chief. Committee members, any questions for the police chief? No? All right. Well, thank you very much, Chief. Moving on, Chief Montoya, emergency management first, please.
All right, there we go. Finally found the right button.
There we go.
Good. We'll start with the emergency management. On the 21st, Public Works hosted a point of distribution for the state for COVID PPE. It was originally scheduled on the 17th, which we had the snowstorm, so they bumped it to the 21st. The DPH representative reported that they had 72 agencies show up for gear pickup and over 1 million pieces of PPE distributed. They were very pleased with the facility there on Clinton Avenue, as well as the support and coordination they received from the Public Works personnel. So kudos to Pat McLaughlin and his team for their support and efforts. On the 7th, just last week, we had a statewide ITAC versus ATAC radio upgrade. So we turned in some portable radios that we've had probably about 17 years, I think. And we got some new ones updated from the state. I think I have distributed all but Tafel and Yannick. They're at the station. If you guys want to swing by and get them, just let me know when you're ready for them. The EOC was prepped and ready for 2 storm responses. The snowstorm on the 17th and then the windstorm and winter weather on Christmas. Thankfully, didn't have to be activated, but it was ready. Again, thank you to NPU for the efforts there and setting up the room, making sure everything was checked and good to go, as well as the dispatch members who went over and checked the comms. Part of that process was some WebEx meetings with Chris LaRose and other members of the city manager, human services, just to kind of test the system if we had to activate the EOC remotely, and that all aspects of that worked well. So pending any questions, that's all I have for emergency management.
No questions for me, members? No, all right. So we get right into the fire department report, Chief.
Certainly. For the fire department, for the month since last month's meeting, we had a total of 189 responses, 76 fire related and 113 medical related. Of those, 32 of them, just under 17% were overlapping, where multiple incidents were occurring at the same time. Mutual aid was given twice over the month and received once. Average response time for apparatus was 317. Critical needs, Squad A is, again, as always, or at least seems to be perpetually at top of the list. But we've also had some Engine 3 issues. So Engine 3 was out of service last month for weeks, waiting for an alternator. This month, it's been out of service for weeks, waiting for a fuel tank. The fuel tank was supposed to shift, it was scheduled to shift on the 11th, 2 days ago. So hopefully fleet maintenance will get the fuel tank in, we'll get Engine 3 back on the road and back to having a spare engine. While Engine 3 was out of service, the Squad also went out of service, so we had to put the rescue in service with the staffing from Squad A. The pump testing for retesting for apparatus citywide that had failed the pump test in the last cycle was conducted, and I can't speak to the volunteer groups, but I'm sure they will. For the city apparatus that had to be retested, all of them did pass the test. That was conducted on the 10th, I believe. of December, right after our last meeting. Staffing, the Director of Training and Safety, an oral board was held today for the candidate. One internal candidate applied. So I'll get the results from HR from that and move forward with the process and take it from there. On the firefighter side, a conditional offer of employment was made to 2 candidates, I'm happy to say, to start the February Fire Academy. They will be starting their process with HR, paperwork-wise, physicals, and background checks. Scheduled to start at the academy the first week in February. Let me think. COVID impact to staffing. To date, we've had 12 cases in the firehouse. And as both the PD and American, I'm pleased to say that so far, everything's been pretty mild in terms of symptoms and impact medically. 3 are currently out, just awaiting their time for their quarantine period after their positive test and the symptoms to reside. Facilities, both stations have remained closed to the public. We have an ongoing window project. They're coming this Saturday, I believe they're scheduled. Mattern is scheduled for a walkthrough. They're expecting the delivery of the windows the end of this month, and they'll start work right away. They're going to work small sections at a time to minimize the impact of the environment outside. So it'll be nice to get that finally taken care of. Let's see, training, continued training. All training that we can do, we've been doing remotely, virtually. The training's in person with shift training, company training. COVID procedures have been followed. Over the month, we've had 7 personnel complete their EMT recertification, and we are working for a springtime schedule for our classes that were received through the grants over the past year. So we have a technical rescue class, and a confined space class, and the scheduling is getting finalized on that for March, April timeframe. COVID-19, again, we continue with our usual precautions. We are constantly involved in state and regional calls, trying to stay ahead of it. Our practices in-house are good, but we can always do a little better. We recently acquired some of the temperature scanning stations from City Hall. So that was a big thing because it helps us remove another touch point. So we don't have to pick up a thermometer and shoot ourselves at the beginning and end of each shift. We can just stand in front of it and get a hands-free temperature reading and log that. So thanks to City Hall personnel responsible for that. I wanted to comment on a couple of notes that the other groups made. So for Eric from Public Utilities, the odor gas response, there were some emails back and forth with Barry. I appreciate the communications and the sharing of information. And the crews should understand that you guys have a regulatory obligation to respond for a gas call, even if there's no service in the building. It could come in through pipeways and other ways. So hopefully that's communicated. Please, if you have any crews have any issues, bring it to my attention. Someone else, the PD. So Chief Daly had mentioned the notification list that he's on for both the police and the other fire departments. If you guys are not on the CTIC, the Connecticut Intelligence Center message distro list, please let me know, and I'll hook you up with the Philo when you can get on that. The Philo is the Fire Intelligence Liaison Officer for CTIC. We talked about inauguration, civil unrest, pseudo threats for the area. Again, any information that I get through CTIC, I'll share with the others and appreciate likewise. So pending your question, sir, that's all I have.
Chief Daly, I'll come back to you on this question. I wrote it down and then I didn't even read it. Chief, with the amount of potential exposures, are you following some sort of rigorous protocols for decontaminating the station itself, especially with the amount of time that the folks are spending there?
We are. They do cleaning on a regular basis. If there's a call where there's any question, of course, they're all wearing the proper PPE. They minimize the number of crew that goes in to begin with. The crew that doesn't go in, helps the member that has the full PPE on doff his gear, do decon right there at the scene, and then they decon the apparatus and any equipment that was used when they return to quarters. Everything else that we have in place, again, we look at it, the distancing in the admin quarters, in the training quarters, even in the kitchen. It's not popular, but we have to behave appropriately for the virus. We've been very fortunate, as the others have mentioned, that our supplies of cleaning materials and PPE and decon stuff has been adequate. So we're in a good position, well stocked.
Right. Yeah. And the only reason why I wrote it down to ask all you folks that is because there's been a renewed emphasis placed on that in my building, right? On surface cleaning, and to the point where they brought in a whole additional crew, and that's all they do is walk around all day and decon surfaces. Even though I don't even have students in the building right now, they're still decon and everything, right? And I just didn't know if we had raised our rigor in our first responder facilities with this current uptick.
We haven't, but we can. Good point. Thank you.
So before we move on, Chief Daly, same question. Obviously, everybody's spending a lot of time in the station. Are you putting an emphasis on deconning surfaces?
Yeah, we have supplies put out throughout the building. Public Works building maintenance comes to our station and provides cleaning, especially surface wipe downs, twice a day. Obviously, we have officers who are exposed to known COVID locations, so we have a handheld fogger that the fire department was kind of instrumental in helping us get. So we fog the cruisers, and if we have an officer who turns out to be later found to be positive, we'll take the car out of service. Missed it pretty well and let it take it offline for usually a shift until we can make sure it's been deconned sufficiently. So we are doing our best working through it. We've also increased our distancing here. We've told the lunchroom capacity has been cut. We're also telling officers, office staff to eat at their desk now to limit person-to-person contact because of the recent update. We're looking at a special order going into effect probably tomorrow just to increase our internal controls as this second wave or next wave comes.
All right, perfect. Thank you. All right, so moving on to TAFL.
So last year we finished up the year with about 759 calls. We were just shy under 50 of where we were last year. And I believe that had to do with the decrease in BLS calls when COVID first started. Otherwise, we would have been on track to beat that number. I don't have the man hours or anything else, but we gave mutual aid 82 times last year to the surrounding towns and communities. 155 of them, 759 calls were overlapping, which is a little over 20%. We'll jump into COVID. Our PPE is doing well. Right now, I have one member that's out, and I have two that are finishing up quarantine. We had gone through, as Radio said, had gone through Hartford Healthcare. We've got approximately 18 members that have begun vaccinations. Several chose not to. The cleaning of the station still closed. We're not conducting any training. We're in the process of switching to online training for fire and EMS. So we should be having that hopefully up and running within the next couple of days. With the station being closed, we've limited access to some of our retirees and stuff like that. But the station is, constantly being cleaned. The rigs are being cleaned after every call where it's a suspected case. We, as the chief alluded, the 95 Pierce passed its pump testing. That wasn't a problem. We had a crew on standby for the snowstorm. Thankfully, we didn't have to go anywhere. Let's see. And last weekend, we were requested by the Willimantic Police Department, the water rescue team, to help with a search for a person that was missing in the water. Taffel and Yannick both went up and took care of what we had to take care of. We worked with several other agencies, but we were the lead. The PD was the lead on the investigation, but we were the lead on the search. Unless you got any other questions, that's all I have.
No, you hit my hot button today on the COVID cleaning, so thank you for that. Members? Okay, nothing from the members. Thank you, Chief. All right, moving on to Yannick, Chief Blanchard.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Yannick, call volume slightly down, which is okay, probably reduced because of COVID and working with American. And dispatch, membership is good. I presently have 3 people in quarantine. Members are getting vaccinations, the ones who want them. I think I do have this second round coming up at the end of the month for one of my guys, and most of the second round are going to be for the first week of February. So vaccinations are underway. Apparatus is in service. As Chief Montoya indicated, one of my pumpers, engine 33, was required to retest. It was retested. It did pass. Our needs are the same as last month for station repairs and upgrades. I won't bore you with the details on that. They were submitted in writing. COVID. We've been doing specialized cleaning since, well, March, April last year.
Right.
Contact surfaces, wipe down, apparatus, foggers, you name it. We really try to stay on top of that, but it's a daunting task. I mean, there are people specifically assigned to it that handle it, and no matter what, I know it's made an impact. I know it's probably reduced a lot of exposures, and the calls that we do go to when there's an exposure, like the other chiefs indicated, it takes a lot of time for the crews to get the rigs cleaned, get themselves decontaminated, get the equipment back in service, but it is what it is. Chief Montoya, please add me or Yannick to the list for the informational updates from the state. I know we talked a while ago that somehow we stopped getting them, but that'd be great if you could get us back on that list. You have the company email that we should use, Chief, yfeco@comcast.net. Other than that, I have nothing else. Any questions?
I do have. I have a question. In there's an old or I guess a former Bacchus Hospital shuttle van all the way down at the end of the road. It's not on the road. It's on a piece of property. I'm not even sure who owns the property, but I just wondered if again, this might have nothing to do with your department, but do you know any reason why one of the Bacchus Hospital's former vans would be abandoned down there?
It's not abandoned. It's the fire company has possession of that vehicle. We were given that vehicle as a training prop, so we'll be using it once we get back to hands-on training shortly.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then that makes a lot of sense. It's all right. Perfect. Thank you for that.
No problem.
Okay, members, any questions for the chief? No, thank you very much. All right, moving on. Chief Spalding from Occam, are you on board the meeting tonight?
Well, yes, I am, and good evening.
Good evening to you,
It's
sir.
been a while since I got on, and
Glad to have you.
technical issues on my part.
That's okay.
We'll start right off. We had our first monthly meeting last night. We're going back to our monthly meetings. All the protocols are going to be in place for the mask and 6 feet. We got 3 new probationary members last night, which brings our rosters up to 40 personnel. Last year, we finished up with 171 calls in 2020. In 2019, we were 197, so we're down on that part of it. Training, our people are doing, finishing up all their testing from their EMT, Fire 1, 2, and officer training when they can get an appointment through the state. And it's like pulling teeth because of this COVID stuff. So
Yeah.
some of the people, they're doing their training online, taking courses and things that we have set up. COVID-19, our station is still closed to the public. We have made our station for all members mandatory. You must wear a mask or you don't come in the building. Our people are getting their shots. Some have already got them. Some others are going to get them as soon as they can get on the roster. And there are some that will be starting their second round probably next week. As far as events, we've basically only doing the chicken barbecues, and that is takeout only. And all the protocols for Uncas Health are in place for that. And we do all the sanitizing for COVID-19 on the apparatus and the gear and any equipment we use on a call. That's been ongoing since November last year.
Right.
So the only other thing I have is the replacement of engine 41. But we have other fish to fry, I'm sure, other than that. But it's just something to keep on your mind for a while, you know.
Add it
That's
to the
about
list.
all I have. So
So,
I'm
yeah.
sure you got my email last year
Yep,
on that. Okay.
yep, I did.
And that's, like I said, that's the way I would be looking to go.
Yeah, and you have ongoing, hard surface cleaning going on in the firehouse as well?
Yes, I have put on another janitor to take care of the overflow of what we're doing.
Terrific. Okay, I don't have any questions for the chief, members? No, all right, so no questions for you, chief. Thank you very much for the report.
All right, thank you.
Okay, moving on, East Cray Plain, Chief Milton, good evening.
Good evening, everybody, and Happy New Year. I know we're a handful of days into it, but Happy New Year to those that I have not seen and
Same
wish
to
that
you.
to.
Yeah.
All right, so for the month of December, EGP responded to 59 calls, which, as the chiefs have said, our calls are down as well. We gave mutual aid 9 times. Out of those 59 calls, we had 10 overlapping calls. For the total last year of responses for 2020, again, down, which I'm not going to complain about, but we did 810 calls for the year, 74 mutual aids and 5 aids, given, we received the aid from surrounding towns or departments in town. And out of those 810, we had 103 overlapping calls. Routine maintenance on the apparatus last month, as Chief Montoya alluded, and the other chiefs, our engine 52 was pumped or retested and passed. As they say, the 3rd time is a charm. That truck has been giving us some significant issues here in the past year to 2 years, and well documented by the city garage and everything. Continuing online training that we've been doing for a while. We've been talking about going back to doing some hands-on training, but not as a large group, possibly, 5, 6, 7 members here one night, 5, 6, 7 members here the next night or such like that. Again, we're in the very beginning stages of having that discussion, obviously with the proper social distancing and such, and members wearing their masks and everything. Members are still being vigilant on all calls due to the virus. As my department, as the other departments doing the hard surface cleanings, the apparatus, the gear, the equipment, you name it, we're doing it. Still good on PPE. I just had one member go into quarantine today as a family member's test came back positive. So that gentleman will be out for his 2 weeks in the penalty box, as I say.
Hmm.
Like all the other departments, members, a good portion of my members have received their first round of the vaccine, which I believe we had like about 33 members sign up for that. A good portion already received it, and some still have their vaccine coming up. Chief Montoya, if you could add me on to that, I believe you said it was the CTEC. That I would greatly appreciate that. Other than that, that's all I have. If anybody's got any questions, please feel free.
Mark Betancourt, go right ahead.
Unmute here. Chief, what percentage of your people took the vaccine?
It was probably close to, I'm going to say like a high 70% right now off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Other questions, Bill? No? All right, Chief, thank you very much. And moving on to Laurel Hill.
Hey, good evening, Joe. Good evening,
Good
everyone.
evening.
All right, Chief Westervelt couldn't make it tonight, so I'm going to be doing it for Laurel Hill. The
Thanks
COVID-19
for being here.
supplies. What's that?
I said thank you for being here.
Oh, no problem. The COVID-19 supplies, we're in good shape right now. We do have one member that tested positive. They are in isolation because of their job. It did not affect the firehouse, so we had no members exposed during that time. We had 17 people took part in the COVID-19 vaccine through Bacchus Hospital so far. For the year, we're right about 100 calls, down a little bit due to COVID-19. We have 5 new members over the last month and a half, and that's been really encouraging. So that's been a really good thing. And we got some really good recruits. So we're kicking off a lot of Proby trainings. We have a guy going to Fire One starting this weekend. And we also have people redoing all their EMT renewals. Our Cascade system should be finished in the next couple of weeks. And last but not least, last month, Chief mentioned to you about the retaining wall issue.
Yeah.
He's currently working with the city manager and engineer for a solution. There's no exact amount yet on it, but he'll keep you updated when that happens.
Yeah, thank you. That was the one question I was going to ask you to bring back to the chief, because I drove by there to take a look at it, and yeah, that's a little hairy right there. That's all that retaining wall coming apart.
Yeah, it really
right up to
moved
the building. Yeah.
It moved a significant amount,
Yeah.
so it was not good.
Well, I'm glad that you guys are on top of that. Let's make sure. Yeah, obviously we're going to make sure we take care of that. All right. Any questions from the members? All right, no questions. Thank you very much. All right, that takes care of the reports. We'll be moving on to 5C, which is city manager update on the 2020 fire service study.
Yes. Basically, I received a draft last week. I rotated it through the finance director and the human resources director, and we proofed it for basically for content, for accuracy of statistics, things like that, from a layman's term. It'll be going back to the consultant later this week. And as you know, we've tentatively scheduled for a council presentation on the second meeting in February, which would be the day after President's Day. So it would be a Tuesday,
the 16th.
The 16th, I believe.
Yep.
And we're attempting to keep the agenda very light, so we spend the whole evening on the presentation and Q&A for the council. And that completes the
Yep.
report for now.
Yep. Thank you for that, John. Any questions from the members? Nope. Okay, thank you for that update.
You're welcome.
Moving on to item D, public safety items for future discussion. Items that you would like to see us put on the agenda that we have not discussed tonight.
Joe, we've got a road in town. It's a private road, BB Road. It's a dirt road. At one time, I think the city used to plow it, but somewhere along the lines, it became a private road. It's so overgrown. There's like 4 houses back there. We'd be hard pressed to get an engine back there. I don't know if we've got any weight there, anything to get that cut back. But there is 4 houses down there, so it'll be a problem for us to get an engine down. We had a problem getting our rescue down and out. It's very narrow, very tiny. You know, the PD had gone down there for the same incident we were at, and it pretty much bottlenecked everything.
What road, Tim?
BB Road.
Oh, BB Road. Okay, off of Harlan Road,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything we can do with it. I just know that it's going to be a problem if we've got to get a piece of fire apparatus down it.
Well, we can look into that. We can talk about that at Public Works, which is next week, right? Bill, go ahead.
You know, I used to live on that road all the way at the end, and it was a private road, and I believe the road was taken under some foreclosure, bankruptcy tax thing or something like that. The lady on the corner there, I believe she's the widower of one of the eye doctors or a dentist in our city. She's contacted me regularly asking to have that road paved. And I tried to explain to her that it's not a city road, it's a private road, and we really don't have, it doesn't meet any of the requirements of a city street whatsoever. And, but it was kind of an issue for me when I lived on it, especially during the snowstorms, because the guy that owned the road, even though I had legal right to use it and drive it, would not plow it on a regular basis. So I know that road's been an issue for a long time down there. And there are like 3 or 4 houses at the end that I'm sure that half the road is paved, the other half is not. So again, I don't know what we can do about it. It is not a city road. I don't know who owns it now, but I know my last information I had was that it was taken either by the bank for a foreclosure, bankruptcy, or something like that. But I don't know how it was taken from the former owner.
Well, that's good to know. So you know, that's worth a phone call to Public Works Director. I'll be happy to make that phone call. And then, you know, let's start taking a look at it. Even if we have to talk to Corporation Counsel to say, okay, we have concerns for, you know, emergency services delivery. Okay, you know, how much latitude do we have here? You know, and so on and so forth. To at least, like Tim says, clear the brush back, so at least you can get an apparatus down there in case of an emergency. So yeah, I'll start that ball rolling and see, you know, where it takes us, you know, from a emergency response standpoint. So thank you for that, Chief. Okay, just write that down. Okay. All right. Any other items for future discussion by this committee?
No, not for a future discussion, but if I could just go back to a couple things I missed. And I want to verify too that I have the right group that I'll forward information to for CTIC distribution.
Sure, go right ahead, Chief.
So Yannick, Taffil, and East Great Plain, I'll send you guys all an email tomorrow. And we'll give you, there's actually a non-disclosure agreement that you have to complete to be on the list, the distro list. So I'll forward you the paperwork and the information to get yourselves on the notification from CTIC. Completely overlooked the fact that it was the end of the year. So I did some research real quick. Total calls for fire department last year were 2,208. 785 of them fire related, 1,423 were medically related. Mutual aid was given 36 times and received 20 times. And I think that was all I overlooked from the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, so if there is nothing else. Oh,
Joe, I
Yeah.
have one more thing. All
sure,
right.
go ahead, Tim.
So this has been going back and forth for a while. And it has to deal with EAP And one year the volunteers qualify for EAP and stuff like that. Other times they do not. Can you guys finally look into getting some clarification for us? Chief Scan was working on it in the past. You know, I don't have an answer. It's just that, you know, one day you're told that we're covered under EAP and the other one we're told we're not. So if we finally get some clarification on that, that would be great. And if we could get the clarification in writing, that would be even better.
So it's employee assistance programs for mental
Yep.
health issues, stress-related issues, and so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
Yep, okay.
We have right
So-
now, oh, go ahead, Bill.
Joe, John might be able to talk about it because I did bring it up prior to the last election. And I spoke with Bridget Marks and John Salamone regarding it because we had a few fatalities where some of the firemen were the younger kids there. And I felt that they might, you know how Joe and Mark, we've been in the same field where it's not, you know, macho to go say, hey, I need to see somebody because I don't feel so good about something I witnessed. So I had asked about EAP for them, and maybe John can give you a little bit more information what happened after I talked about it. But I did talk about it with Bridget Marks and John Salamone regarding about getting them some assistance that if, you know, some of the old timers saw some of the younger kids, because it was like 3 or 4 fatals, like right in a row. And it was mostly Taftville, I believe Ockham and Yantic that were dealing with those 3 fatals. And I didn't know if there were a lot of the younger officers there. So I did check into it. So John might be able to answer on to you where it went from there, but I did look into it, and I'm not sure how far it went after I mentioned it.
I can answer that question a little bit, Bill.
Go ahead.
We did make inquiries of our EAP and provider, and we weren't satisfied with his response. Basically, the provider wanted to charge per unit cost for each volunteer, which is not reflective of the time that they would have to spend with the EAP person. So I believe that we were going to do it on a case-by-case basis rather than cover ourselves all the time for it. Utilize it when it's necessary, and I'll get something official so everybody knows what the status of. But we're not using EAP as a townwide function because it's the cost is prohibitive with the way they want to charge. They're a good company and all that, but they have unfortunately they consider each volunteer an employee, so they charge as such, which is unrealistic. So we'd rather do it on a case by case basis.
So instead of having an overall umbrella that we would be paying for whether it got used or not, we're going to go on a pay as you go kind of as incidents occur, as people need the services, and and the city would cover those costs.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess we just need to build the protocols for how the chiefs access that, right, for their folks.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
If I may, Joe.
Yeah, go right ahead, Chief.
I would also just offer, as Rob from American had touched on last month, that you always have a peer service, peer counseling service available too. So we have a couple of firefighters that have gone through some training to be peer support group members. I know American has, I know the PD has, and it's probably better to go outside of your agency for that help. So there is a resource, not as good or qualified or certified as the EAP folks are by any stretch, but certainly a resource to speak to someone who, one, probably has seen it themselves, but also just to have that resource available. And maybe Rob could speak to what they have at American as well. I know that as firefighters, we've used some of the peer counselors at American, and it was very helpful to the members that need it.
That's great. That's good to know. Rob, do you want to touch on that?
We are very fortunate to have our own internal EAP, which is pretty amazing, actually. And then there are several groups involved with us that that could put you in the right direction if you needed to do that. We don't actually have an established internal peer support group. That's one of our goals going forward. Matter of fact, our VP is heavily involved at the state level with some first responder wellness issues that he's pushing pretty much statewide, which we may see for EMS providers, both fire and ambulance based, coming in the next year or so. So that is a huge benefit to us. We do have an organization that is informally based with us. One of our paramedics actually, after having a fairly rough time of it himself, started a mental health for first responders group who essentially provides referrals to clinicians in the area that are experienced with first responder issues. And as the chief alluded to, oftentimes it is more helpful to go outside of your organization, and members feel more comfortable doing that. So we've had great luck with that. Certainly we are always striving to do more, and that is one of our organizational goals for the next year. But we've been very fortunate to have not only our own fairly incredibly robust EAP program, but that staff generated and completely facilitated group that we can certainly put anybody that needs it in touch with. Be more than happy to share that information.
That's very helpful, and thank you for that. I guess what I would prefer to see, and the other members can comment, is that the city manager choose whatever department this would be most appropriate to fall under, to build a set of resources, right? Because we're hearing about these different resources that are available, and I don't think that there's any one place where they're all listed where people can confidentially get help, whether it's through a peer in a related agency but not their own agency, or from a service provider like EAP. And if it was scaffolded and it was all in one place, in one library where folks could just, on the down low, they know where to look to get the help that they feel like they need. I think that would go a long way. And again, without the expertise of putting that together, it's just, organizational, how I'm thinking, how it would work and come together, and who would oversee it. That's above my pay grade. That's above my intelligence level, or at least my training level. So if we could start to work on that, John, I think that would get us going in the right direction.
Absolutely. We'll take a comprehensive approach at it. It would be the assignment of human resources to coordinate it, though, if I can tell you that now.
All right. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Tim, for bringing that up. Especially now, this is so important that we be thinking about what's going on in here with all of our folks. All right. Terrific. Anything else? Yes, Bill, go ahead.
Yeah, I wasn't going to comment on it, but I figured I'd bring it up anyway, since Ms. Philbrick found it necessary to ask me why I wasn't wearing my mask. I'm not really sure what she's referring to. I'm only assuming that it's when I'm at council, because I do wear my mask into building, out the building, and when I'm within 6 to 8 feet of anybody. But when I sit up on the dais, and I sit on the dais, and sometimes it's very difficult to hear my fellow council persons with the masks on. And since I'm within, I'm going to say a minimum of 10 feet, possibly further away from each and every one, I felt that it was because of the thing was within 6 feet, wear a mask, outside of 6 feet, don't wear a mask, or you don't need to wear a mask. So I will say this: if any of the council persons wish to speak with me privately and they are uncomfortable with me not wearing my mask, sitting on the dais 12 to 15 feet from everybody, I'll be more than happy to put the mask on. But if you want to make that a private conversation, I'd be more than happy to have that with you. But I just wanted to answer Ms. Philbrick to give her answer that the reason I do not wear the mask on the dais is because I'm properly spaced from my fellow council persons, and I do not believe I'm putting anybody at risk there. So that's what I'd like to say.
Well, I'm sure she'll be happy to have that answer. And that's not sarcasm. I mean that. And thank you very much for addressing that comment. Okay. last time. Is there anything else that we would like that we should discuss tonight or put on future agenda?
Joe, the only thing that I had, Chief Montoya, could you put Laurel Hill on the email chain for the CTEC? Thank you, sir.
He's got you. All right, perfect. All right, thank you all again. So our next meeting will be February 10th, 2021. I envision it being a Zoom meeting. And with
Motion to
that,
adjourn.
yeah, with that, thank you very much. Moved and seconded by Alderman Nash. All those in favor? Oh,
Roll call.
wait a minute, hold on. I know, but the mayor raised his hand. No?
Actually, I was going to hit the leave button. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. I just didn't want to blow past you. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, so Alderman Nash,
Yes.
Alderman Bettencourt,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much. Stay safe out there, and we will see you soon.
Peace, everybody.
Have a great night, everyone.
You too, thank you.